It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's date is October 30th. It is a Thursday. So happy it's Thursday. And what do we do in the B Block, John? What do we do?
Brad is the walking wounded.
It's time for
wait a
Brad's
minute.
top 3.
It's time for Brad's top 3. Yeah, I was not on time with them.
You can hear it now, so you can sing along if you want.
I can. That's a good point.
Okay. And we start off with...
It's number 3.
Who's my number 3 this morning, John? Who is it? Take a guess.
It would be either Bill Eigel or Caroline Levitt in a teeny-weeny bikini or Steve Ellman.
How about Josh Hawley? Josh Hawley.
Oh, what's he doing lately there, Brad?
Josh Hawley is now... Man, I don't know what's going on with this guy. Let me put it to you this way. I don't understand what direction he's headed anymore because I think he's lost his rudder, and I tell you the reason for that is who is the guy who shot down with the Grain Belt Express, which was a electric transmission system which was going to go across northern Missouri? Who is that guy, John?
It would be Josh Hawley.
And what is Josh Hawley complaining about now? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know. Is it on johncombest.com this morning, Brad?
Yes, it is. That's where I got it from. It's from St. Louis PR. He's complaining that the data centers that want to move into the St. Louis area could influence the ratepayers, or what the rate that the citizens, and mainly the consumers, not necessarily businesses, but the consumers, the rates would go up because demand would spike when the data centers came online, and that would cost us all more money. Now, don't you find it interesting? He's complaining about this, but yet he's the guy that shot down a transmission line that was going to go right through Missouri, which could have dumped a lot of power into Missouri. But no, he shot that down. And yet he's saying, oh, this is terrible. There's going to be some people come into town. The state is going to use some electricity, and we may all end up paying for it. Well, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, John. Do you see a little amount of hypocrisy from Mr. Hawley on this one?
Excuse me. Now, maybe, but also here's where I see the consistency. If you picture the little guy, the proverbial little guy, at one point, he doesn't want the Grain Belt Express to come through. At another point, he doesn't want a big corporation like Ameren to ask him to subsidize construction works in progress, including data centers. So you could make the argument, and I'm sure Hawley would, that he's actually just standing up for the little guy, and he's completely consistent.
You know, I read a story earlier this week, and I heard this a couple of weeks back, talking about the fact that the Chinese, and it's interesting if you've seen the national news, there's all these breakthrough negotiations with Trump being in China. They're hitting the news wire this morning. Anyway, that the Chinese people are going like, we're going to own AI, and they're building power plants. I heard some number, it almost was stunning to me. They're putting like one power plant a month online in China. One power plant a month online in China. When's the last time we had a power plant built in the state of Missouri? John?
We had the one that was built in Little Chernobyl. That was a big one. Yeah, that was right over there in Versailles, Missouri. Brad, when it comes to the Grain Belt Express, and I don't mean to derail the data center story, but I think it's important because you brought up Grain Belt. We had a gentleman, and I'm not sure he wants us to use his name, but folks can see his comment. His name, his God-given Christian name, is not on his YouTube comment. But here's what he said, and he directed it at you. Brad, the issue with the Grain Belt Express was the misuse of eminent domain. Local objections, ag and commodity objections, and most political objections were centered on the use of eminent domain for a private, for-profit enterprise that offered only token benefits to impacted communities, landowners, and farm operations. For what it's worth, I also think it's telling that if, in fact, our U.S. Senator doesn't know Cindy O'Loughlin personally, but his objections to Grain Belt Express are well-founded and shared by the state's leading ag, commodity, and property rights organizations. And Brad, I said I wouldn't say the gentleman's name, and I'm not. He can add a further comment if he'd like to add his name. But this is a gentleman at the apex and at the center of agriculture policy and state policy on a government level and a commodity group level. So I would first of all thank you to this gentleman for leaving his comment and others who leave comments on our show. So I thought it was just important to acknowledge his feedback.
John, I will make the comment that my counter comment is this is akin to the people who complain about the fact that they get dropped in certain areas on their cell phone, but yet when the cell phone company comes to town and tries to put up a tower to fill in that dead spot, they're, oh, we don't want that cellular tower. It's going to ruin our property values. It's going to make our kids go sterile. It's going to make our cats go nuts. And not only that, I'm the biggest eminent domain fan in the world. I've told you the story that if I rule the world, the eminent domain...
What kind of X would it be, Brad? What would your policy be?
10 times fair market value.
10X policy.
10X.
You would grant Cardone it. You would 10X it, right?
If somebody wants to come in and, the government says we need... But see, the part of this that's so ridiculous for me is, remember, I told you, you go down along Augusta Bottom Road and you see all the power lines coming out of Labadie across the Missouri River there into Warren County and St. Charles County and it takes up like 100 square feet. Here you got a farmer that's got like 4,000 acres and they're going to put like a tower every 200 feet that's going to take up 100 square feet. I mean, it's not like you're taking his lower 40 or something like that.
It's not the same thing. And the difference between like electric towers and a radio tower, you'll never drive by an electric tower and see an old man on a riding lawnmower setting himself on fire.
John, you're always so nice to me. See,
I think it's going to help your gallbladder, Brad. A little verbal therapy will help your gallbladder.
This is the classic example of not in my backyard, citizens against virtually everything. There has to be a situation where both sides have to come together and say, okay, you have an issue, we have an issue, let's work together. And the eminent domain thing is like... God, don't get me going on it.
I'm not. And Brad, I think if people want to hear about two sides of working something out, go to B Block yesterday, and you're going to see how Brad orchestrated a brokered deal between two old bats at a Leeds group who couldn't get along.
Okay, we move on to number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
Oh, that's yours. Hold on a minute. I'm losing it this morning, John. I'm losing it this morning. I'm totally losing it.
It's time for Brad's number 2.
It's time for Brad's number 2.
I will tell you that I did take some medication this morning, and it may be taking effect, so that's why I'm a little bit...
Oh, Brad, maybe we shouldn't talk about Caroline Levitt if it's the medication I'm thinking of.
No, it's not that kind of a medication.
Oh, okay.
Hold on a minute. I got a cough. Man, I'm just a wreck this morning. Okay, Brad's number 2 is what John sent me this morning, and I need you to explain this to me because of the fact that why is the St. Louis Development Corporation issuing these huge PR contracts? What in the world did I do PR for? You being a former comms guy for a Fortune 100 company in the old days, Monsanto, why is a governmental agency putting into effect $2 million public relation campaigns? Explain that, John.
Yeah, and so I don't have the article at my fingertips right now. I was just looking it up. But for folks who know the St. Louis Development Corporation, which we talked about at great length, they have some things that they had gotten essentially in trouble for. They have new leadership, the distribution of grants and the awarding of grants. But they also are required as part of their mission to promote these programs and promote the opportunities and promote the work that they do. And in fact, Brad, I would think that you would be enthusiastic about what happens here because it involves taking business from another part of the state and bringing it into our broadcast area. And Brad, if you wouldn't mind, if you could bring that article up, just because I don't have it in front of me right now. I don't have it at my fingertips, but there was a company called Candid in Kansas City. I'm speaking off memory here.
Right.
A company called Candid in Kansas City that had the contract with the St. Louis Development Corporation. And they were getting a pretty penny to promote St. Louis Development, the St. Louis Development Authority, essentially. And under new leadership, that Candid Group is giving up, I shouldn't say giving up, St. Louis Development Authority is, I want to make sure I get the names of this right, Brad. Forgive me for just speaking off the cuff here. I'm sorry, it's St. Louis Development Corporation. Excuse me, not authority. And work that had originally been handled by a Kansas City-based outfit called Candid. They had overseen marketing and media relations since 2022. that work will now be done by a company based in Chesterfield called Common Ground. Now, for folks who've been around the PR world for a while, Common Ground is a well-respected, well-known PR firm that I guess they've always been in St. Louis County. I'm thinking of exactly where they were. For some reason, I thought they might have had offices in St. Charles County, but they're run by a woman named Denise Bentelli, or Bentel, either Bentel or Bentelli. Forgive me if I get that name wrong, but it's largely, almost exclusively, a female PR firm. Like, I think it's pretty much all women that run the firm. And so, Brad, the idea is that if you're one of these development corporations, you need a PR firm to do marketing and promotion. And Brad would say, and the Brads of the world, to put words in your mouth, would say, yeah, well, why can't somebody at St. Louis Development Corporation do that marketing themselves, right, Brad?
No, not necessarily. I just find it interesting that I don't necessarily. I mean, the original contract. I read the story. The original contract, if I'm not mistaken, was like a couple $1 million for Candid. Wasn't that what it was?
$2 million. Yeah,
$2 million. And the deal was they were trying to extend the contract, and there was some controversy about the board for SLDC said no, and now they've given. First off, I have a problem with the contract going to a Kansas City company. That's a problem I have right there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And secondly, it's to the point where I don't. It just, sometimes I see these things, it just drives me nuts. It's to the point where, why can't they bring somebody in-house to do this? You know what I'm saying?
And I'll tell you why, Brad, because if you had there's so many advantages to hiring an agency versus tasking one full-time employee to whom you pay medical benefits and God knows what else. And if you farm it out to an agency, you have the advantage of using all the agency's experience, contacts, depth of knowledge. People can go back and look at the portfolio that Common Ground has worked on for decades and the work they've done, and they see the experience versus hiring somebody's nephew for $40,000 a year, and then you got to pay him health benefits and God knows what else. So you hire a PR firm to actually do the work, and then you hold them accountable. And if Common Ground wasn't good at what they did, and if they don't do a good job, you know what? SLDC can replace them with somebody else.
I have a suggestion. What they should do is, we just lost a city official, and you know how things go. People just move around within certain jobs.
Oh, you
city.
mean the sheriff?
Yeah, I think the sheriff should take over.
Yeah, we could have Alfred Montgomery use the jailhouse version of Canva.
Right. We should have him be the new dude who's handling this. Okay, ready for number one?
Yeah, let's do it, Brad.
And now, big finish, Brad's number.
Okay. Have you heard that young Greta Thunberg, whatever her name is? Thunberg, Greta Thunberg, after she got out of jail in Israel. Did you hear the story where she was in jail in Israel? Did you hear that crazy story?
No, I did not hear the story.
Well, I'll tell that first, then I'll get to my real story. She and a bunch of it was interesting because one of the Israeli officials called them something like the selfie crew or something like that. They bought or rented all these boats. They called it a flotilla, and they were trying to sail into Gaza. Now, keep in mind, Gaza is right there on the Mediterranean Sea, which is part of Israel's coast as well, too. And they tried to sail into Gaza to help the people of Gaza. And the Israeli Navy essentially grabbed them all and threw them in jail. And I think they repatriated her back wherever she's from. But Greta Thunberg is under suicide watch after something happened. You know what that is, John?
Oh, no. Is this for real?
Yes, this is for real.
What happened? Did somebody call her an autistic agitator and she couldn't take the pressure?
No, she's under suicide watch because of just the other day, Bill Gates, in a much publicized interview, essentially has done an about-face on climate change. Have you heard this story?
Oh, no. Are you serious? Okay, this sounds like breaking news. What happened? What is his flip-flop?
Okay, October 28th. And to give you an idea, this story, my source on this is pbs.org. So it's not like a...
Yikes. Yeah, this isn't some right-wing outfit.
Right. It's not like a bunch of Fox News digital people say, let's make a story up about Bill Gates. I'll read the first paragraph. Bill Gates thinks climate change is a serious problem, but it won't be the end of civilization. He thinks scientific innovation will curb it, and it's instead time for a, quote, strategic pivot in the global climate fight, from focusing on limiting rising temperatures to fighting poverty and preventing disease. Second paragraph. A doomsday outlook has led the climate community to focus too much on near-term goals to reduce emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases that cause warming, diverting resources from the most effective things that can be done to improve life in a warming world. Gates said in a memo released Tuesday that the world's primary goal should instead be to prevent suffering, particularly for those in the toughest conditions in the world's poorest country. And he says, and this is what he said, if given a choice between eradicating malaria and a 1/10 of a degree increase in warming, quote, I'll let the temperature go up 0.1 degree to get rid of malaria. People don't understand the suffering that exists today, Gates told reporters during a roundtable discussion ahead of the release. Okay, he met with reporters, and he's essentially saying, yeah, climate's not that, we shouldn't really worry that much about it. It's not that big of a deal. We need to worry about suffering the people. Now, remember, if I'm not mistaken, under the Biden administration, didn't one of the generals come out and say the biggest problem that the United States was facing was climate change?
Absolutely. It was the number one.
Right.
I mean, under Joe Biden, the number 1 and 2 crises that we had, according to the administration, was climate change and institutional racism.
Right. It wasn't those Ruskies who are invading Ukraine. It wasn't those Chinese people who keep coming up with new missiles and things like that. It wasn't all the third world countries who now can afford, all sorts of expensive armaments. It wasn't the fact that we're being attacked on the southern border by people coming across the border. No, it was climate change. And see, being a car guy, and have done this for a long time, talk to any car guy. They will tell you exactly what they agree with me 100%. The computerization of cars has helped eliminate tremendous amount of pollution. All you have to do is sit behind an older car like a 60s car at a stoplight and you go, oh my God, that thing stinks. The cars now are running incredibly clean. The problem is the environmentalists are of that, well, how much more can we make it clean? Get what I'm saying? It's to the point where...
Yeah. And then you reach the point of diminishing returns.
Yes, exactly. You get to the
And that's kind of Gates's point, isn't it?
Exactly what he's saying. He's essentially saying, look, we've come a long way. And the other problem was, which he didn't mention, is we can make everything nice and clean and stuff like that. And once again, my meteorological training, if you look at the world, the weather fronts move from west to east, which means our clean air goes across the Atlantic now and goes into Europe. But yet the bad dirty air from China and India comes across the Pacific, and guess where it ends up at? In the United States.
And maybe that's our value add to the world. We could clean up the air and send it on to Europe.
We should have, you know what? I got a great idea. We should build a bunch of scrubbers that would take in that air from the west, the West Coast. We could maybe put these scrubbers up in northern Missouri, and you buy some farmland, or no, better yet, we'll just eminent domain a bunch of farmland up there in Missouri, and we'll put
Brad, keep going.
We'll put in these scrubbers, which will suck in the polluted air that we get from across the Pacific and from China and from India, and we'll suck it in, and we'll clean it up, and we'll put it back out so the people in Illinois can have clean air. What do you think, John?
I think some folks from Ameren can get you a pretty good deal on scrubbers down in Labadie.
Let me further talk about this. He wrote a 17-page memo hoping to have an impact on next month's United Nations Climate Change Conference in Brazil. He's urging world leaders to ask whether the little money designated for climate is being spent on the right things. Little money for climate. Little money designated for climate.
Oh, yeah. And Brett, and let me interject real quick. I imagine, like sight unseen, going into this blind, there are a bunch of groups this week that rely on Gates Foundation money, that have a relationship with Gates Foundation, that are penning strongly worded letters to Bill Gates, literally as we speak, saying, okay, we have to go on record as telling Bill that he's wrong. We need Gates Foundation money, so we can't criticize him in the media. but we need to let him know that he's wrong, and we're going on the record as saying that he's wrong.
It's funny you should mention that. I'll read one more paragraph. This is a quote. If you think climate is not important, you won't agree with the memo. If you think climate is the only cause and apocalyptic, you won't agree with the memo, Gates told reporters. It's kind of this pragmatic view of somebody who's trying to maximize the money and innovation that goes to help in these poor countries. He's essentially saying it's poverty and bad living conditions and malaria and diseases that we could be fighting, but no, instead we're scrubbing the air. God, you know what? And once again, people make fun of me. I'm Mr. Recycle. I'm the guy that's got recycle bins and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's because you're extra chintzy. Like, that has nothing to do with you wanting to save the environment. It has to do with the fact you're cheap, and you'd rather spend a half hour in the car driving to Valley Park than going out and selling another batch of radio ads.
John, I have to be honest with you. I'm failing fast. Let's see if we can make it through C Block. I may have to bail out the C Block.
Why don't we cut, jokes aside, why don't we cut it at B Block? I'm concerned with your health, Brad, and I think that you should, why don't we cut it after 2 blocks today? I think you should go to the doctor, Brad. If you're waking up in the middle of the night and you know it's your gallbladder, that's nothing to mess with, Brad.
Well, John, let's just finish the show up, and then I will chop it up, and I'll call my doctor and see if I can get an
You
appointment.
better not chop it up. You better get right to the doctor. Okay, we'll come back for CBOC.
Okay. And I hate to be a wimp, John, but I'm not in
Glad you're not a wimp, and your masculinity is not defined by ignoring a serious medical condition. Let's go to break, and if you feel good, we'll come back.
I'm making too many mistakes this morning. Okay.